Have you ever felt something inside you that seemed older than your own life? A fear you could not explain, a sadness that did not seem to begin with you, a tension in your body that appeared before any thought could explain it. Perhaps you have asked yourself, why do I feel this way when nothing in my own life fully explains it? Why do I react so strongly to certain situations? Why do I carry anxiety, grief, guilt, or fear that feels larger than my personal story? For many people, this question opens a doorway into something profound. Because not everything we carry begins with us. Some patterns are learned, some are absorbed, some are inherited through family dynamics, silence, emotional atmosphere, and survival strategies. And some, science is beginning to suggest, may leave biological traces that travel from one generation to the next. This is where psychology, ancestral healing, and epigenetics meet. Welcome to Inner Light Integration. I'm Aimee El-Tobgy, MA, founder and integrative human potential mentor. Today we are exploring a fascinating and deeply human question. Can the trauma of our ancestors leave echoes in our bodies, our emotions, and even in the way our genes express themselves? And more importantly, if we have inherited patterns of fear, silence, grief, or survival, can we become the generation that transforms them? Trauma doesn't rewrite your DNA code, but life experiences influence how genes are expressed. Think of your genes as a library. Epigenetic marks are like bookmarks, influencing which books are opened and how loudly they're read. The adaptations that helped one generation survive can become the emotional burden of the next. A grandparent survives war. A child inherits a home filled with tension. The body learns. And eventually someone asks, why am I carrying something that does not feel entirely mine? In many families, trauma is not passed down through stories. It is passed down through silence. Sometimes our ancestors could not speak because speaking was unsafe, or they were simply trying to survive. But what is not spoken does not disappear. It becomes an atmosphere, a grief that has no name. A child may grow up never hearing the story, yet somehow sensing the wound. They may become anxious without knowing why, or responsible for the emotional survival of the whole family. This is ancestral silence. Growing research on intergenerational trauma suggests the experiences of our ancestors may leave epigenetic signatures across generations. But we must be honest, science has not proven that every fear you feel came directly from your grandmother's DNA. We are shaped by biology, but also by culture, family stories, and personal experience. So when we speak about ancestral trauma, we are not saying, this is your destiny. We are saying, there may be more to your story than your personal memories. The purpose is not to blame the past, but to understand what has been carried forward unconsciously, so it can be met with consciousness. Your body is a living archive. It remembers what your mind may not have words for. This is why a person can feel fear before they understand the situation. Why the body tightens before the mind has formed a thought. If your family lived through instability or chronic stress, the nervous system may have learned that safety is temporary. These beliefs may not be spoken, but they are lived. A family doesn't need to say, do not talk about pain. A child can learn it. This is how ancestral patterns become personal identity. And this is why healing must be compassionate. Because what looks like self-sabotage may once have been protection. What looks like anxiety may once have been vigilance. The pattern is not your identity. It is information. Ancestral healing is often misunderstood. It is not about romanticizing the past. It is not about blaming your family. It is not about imagining that every difficulty in your life comes from another generation. It is not about avoiding your own responsibility. True ancestral healing is the opposite. It asks you to become more conscious, more honest, more compassionate, more responsible. It asks, what did my family survive? What was never spoken? What emotions were forbidden? What roles were passed down? What fears shaped the choices of those before me? What gifts also came through this lineage? Because ancestry is not only trauma, it is also resilience. It is skill. It is intuition. It is prayer. It is creativity. It is endurance. It is wisdom. It is the ability to continue living after loss. It is the strength of those who carried life forward when conditions were difficult. If we only look for wounds, we miss the blessing. If we only look for blessings, we deny the wound. Integration means we make room for both. We honor what was strong. We release what is no longer needed. We grieve what was lost. We reclaim what was interrupted. We transform what was passed down unconsciously. This is not about rejecting your ancestors. It is about continuing the story with more awareness. Let us look at a simple example. Imagine a grandmother who lived through deep loss. Perhaps she lost her home, her security, her dignity, or someone she loved. But she never spoke about it. She became practical, strong, controlled. She survived by not feeling too much. Her child grows up sensing that emotions are dangerous. So the child becomes careful, responsible, good, quiet. Then the next generation grows up feeling that love means not causing trouble. They become the peacemaker, the helper, the one who reads the room, the one who knows everyone's mood before anyone speaks. Years later, this person wonders why they feel anxious in relationships, why they cannot set boundaries, why they feel guilty when they rest, why they are exhausted from carrying everyone. On the surface, this looks like a personal problem, but underneath, it may be a family adaptation, a survival strategy that outlived the danger. This is why we must ask deeper questions. Not simply, what is wrong with me? But, what was this pattern trying to protect? Where did it begin? What did my family learn was unsafe? What am I still carrying that belongs to another time? And then the most important question, what can end with me? Dreams often enter this conversation in a powerful way. Many people dream of old houses, unknown relatives, dark rooms, buried objects, floods, fires, ancient places, lost children, locked doors, voices they cannot understand. From a psychological perspective, dreams speak in symbols. They show us what the conscious mind may avoid. They bring hidden material to the surface. From an ancestral perspective, dreams can feel like doorways into family memory. Not necessarily literal memories, but emotional patterns, unfinished grief, unspoken truths, images of what has been buried. A recurring dream may not be just a dream. It may be the psyche saying, "Look here, there is something unresolved. There is something waiting to be understood." This does not mean every dream must be interpreted dramatically, but it does mean we can approach dreams with reverence. Ask, what feeling did this dream leave in my body? Does this image remind me of a family pattern? Is there a silence, secret, or grief around this symbol? What part of me, or my lineage, is asking to be seen? In inner light integration, dream work is not fortune-telling. It is a conversation with the deeper self. And sometimes the deeper self speaks in the language of ancestors. Here is where the story changes. If trauma can echo through generations, then so can healing. If fear can be passed down, so can courage. If silence can be inherited, so can truth. If shame can travel, so can compassion. This is the part many people forget. Epigenetics is not only about damage, it is also about adaptation. The body is responsive. The nervous system can learn safety. The mind can form new pathways. The family story can be told differently. The pattern can loosen. A different choice, repeated with compassion, becomes a new message to the system. When you pause instead of reacting. When you speak truth where silence once lived. When you rest without guilt. When you set a boundary with love. When you stop carrying what was never yours. When you allow joy without apologizing. Something changes, not only in your psychology, in the atmosphere around you, in the relationships you create, in the children who watch you, in the way your family learns what is possible. You become a filter. You receive what came before you. You bless what was wise. You mourn what was painful. You release what is no longer needed. And you choose what continues. That is lineage work. That is conscious inheritance. That is becoming the architect of a new legacy. Before we close, I want to offer you a simple reflection. You do not need special tools. You do not need to know your entire family history. You only need honesty, gentleness, and a quiet moment. Take a breath, place one hand on your heart, or simply bring awareness to your body. And ask yourself, what emotion in me feels older than my own story? Do not force an answer, just notice. Then ask, what pattern in my family was repeated but rarely spoken about? And finally, what is one small thing I can do differently with compassion this week? Maybe it is resting without guilt. Maybe it is writing down a dream. Maybe it is asking an elder a gentle question. Maybe it is naming a feeling instead of hiding it. Maybe it is saying no. Maybe it is allowing yourself to feel joy. Small acts matter, because healing is not always dramatic. Sometimes healing is a quiet refusal to continue abandoning yourself. Sometimes it is a single honest sentence. Sometimes it is the moment you realize, this did not begin with me, but it can begin to change through me. Perhaps the greatest gift we can offer our ancestors is not to relive their pain. It is to bring consciousness to what they had to carry in silence. Perhaps the greatest gift we can offer future generations is not perfection. It is presence. Every time you meet an old pattern with compassion instead of shame, every time you choose awareness instead of automatic reaction, every time you tell the truth with love, every time you transform inherited fear into wisdom, you are participating in the healing of the lineage. You are not just healing yourself, you are changing the conversation between past and future. The ghost in your genes is not a curse, it is a message. It says, something was carried, something was silenced, something is ready to be seen. And when you see it with love, the pattern begins to change. Not all at once, not magically, but honestly, gently. One breath, one choice, one generation, one light at a time. This is Inner Light Integration. If this video resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and continue this journey with me. And I would love to hear from you in the comments. What hidden family pattern are you beginning to recognize? What silence in your lineage feels ready to be witnessed? Thank you for being here. I'm Aimee El-Tobgy, MA, and I'll see you in the next video.